Hey heroes, and welcome to another incredible episode of History of the Marvel Universe. This channel is sponsored in part by Patreon supporters. If you would like to contribute and vote in monthly polls that help decide what topics get covered on the channel, then you can sign up for an amount of your choosing over at patreon.com/MaryMarvelite. The link is in the description below, along with other places you can find me. Previously on the channel, we looked at the origins of General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, and the beginning of his obsession with defeating and capturing Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk. When we last left off, Ross had made a deal with the super-intelligent criminal MODOK, and the two released the monstrous abomination, Emil Blonsky, in an attempt to best their mutual foe. After his daughter Betty accused him of betraying their country, Ross was overwhelmed by shame and fell into a depression. While official treason charges were never actually filed, he nonetheless lost his military position and disappeared, after which he became a drifter and sank further into madness. Meanwhile, the superhuman psychiatrist Doc Samson attempted an experiment that separated Bruce Banner and the Hulk into two distinct beings with their own separate bodies. Initially, that seemed to be successful, although you can refer to my video on Doc Samson for some of the complications that arose. Notably, the process left the Hulk virtually mindless and motivated entirely by instinct and rage. Meanwhile, with Banner cured of his transformations, he and Betty decided to finally complete their long-delayed wedding. However, this time the ceremony was interrupted by a disheveled Thunderbolt Ross who tried to prevent the marriage at gunpoint. Banner's longtime ally, Rick Jones, attempted to intervene but was shot by Ross, much to Betty's horror. Fed up with his overbearing interference in her life and enraged by this latest intrusion, Betty confronted her father and declared that she was a grown woman and that if he wanted to stop her from marrying who she wanted, it was her that he would have to shoot. In the end, Ross dropped to his knees while Betty took the gun and ejected the magazine. Bruce, meanwhile, tended to his friend's wounds, and not only did Rick survive, but he insisted that they complete the wedding before he was brought to the hospital. The newlywed couple then had Ross placed into psychiatric care. Ross attempted to apologize to Rick, but Jones wasn't interested in hearing what the former general had to say. While in this vulnerable state, Ross was approached by his old ally, S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Clay Quartermain, who sought to recruit him into his own battle against the mindless Hulk. Offering him a chance at revenge, Quartermain had Ross released from the hospital and brought him back to Gamma Base in New Mexico. However, things soon got more complicated when Bruce's allies learned that his separation from the Hulk would soon result in his death, and worked to rejoin them. Ross attempted to sabotage this process and doom both Banner and the Hulk, but was caught by Rick Jones. In the ensuing scuffle, Ross threw Jones into the same chemical bath meant to stabilize the Hulk's condition. Ultimately, his interference resulted in the Hulk reverting to his original gray form, while Rick Jones changed into a green Hulk form of his own. His role in this having gone unnoticed, Ross then participated in what Quartermain had recruited him for and underwent an experimental procedure meant to endow him with the same abilities as the captive electromagnetic monster Zzzax. Now, this experiment ultimately failed and Zzzax escaped, but when the creature devoured the electrical impulses from Ross's brain, it absorbed his consciousness as well, which soon gained control and went after the Hulks. However, when the ensuing battle spilled over to a small nearby town, the Thunderbolt Zzzax ended up threatening the lives of innocent civilians. Realizing that he had become a monster himself, Ross came to his senses and fled. He returned his mind to its proper body, but in doing so retained some of Zzzax's electrical abilities. He intended on using these powers against Banner, but awakened to find Gamma Base under attack by the mind-controlling mutant Nevermind. When Nevermind attempted to latch onto Betty, Ross jumped in the way. And as the parasitic mutant began to seize control over Ross, the former general used his electrical powers to kill it, sacrificing his own life to save his daughter. Mortally wounded, Ross admitted to both Betty and himself that it wasn't Banner or the Hulk that had ruined their relationship, but his own obsessive hatred. With that, General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross died in his daughter's arms, his final act being one of love and redemption. At least it would have been if not for the super-intelligent gamma mutate Samuel Stearns, better known as the Leader, who stole Ross's body before it reached the morgue. As part of his own schemes to combat the Hulk, the Leader restored Ross's body to life and outfitted him with a high-tech suit called the Redeemer armor, effectively transforming him into a mindless pawn. Beneath the armor's translucent helmet, Ross appeared to be little more than a vegetable, his mind alive and aware, but unable to control his own body. As the Redeemer, Ross was forced to serve the Leader and defend his headquarters, Freehold, alongside other villainous henchmen. Naturally, this led to another confrontation with the Hulk, who by this point had returned to a green form with Banner's intellect. Upon cracking the Redeemer's helmet and seeing the face of Thunderbolt Ross, the Hulk initially believed that this was simply one of the Leader's manipulative tricks, and struck him down. He quickly realized his mistake, but by then it was too late, as Ross appeared to be well and truly dead. However, death would be denied to him yet again, as this time the former general's near-lifeless body was discovered by an alien warrior named Armageddon, who also sought vengeance on the Hulk. Seeking to use him as bait, Armageddon took Ross back to his people, the Trojans, who then improved upon the Leader's technology to completely revive him. They returned him to his office in Washington with no memory of how he'd been resurrected, but he soon reunited with his daughter Betty. She was naturally dubious of the whole situation, but federal agent Henry Peter Gyrick confirmed that the government had indeed covered up the fact that her father's body had gone missing shortly after his death. Back in fighting shape, Ross was restored to his previous rank and position as an Air Force general. He had further clashes with the Hulk, but for the sake of his daughter pursued more diplomatic solutions when dealing with Banner. He also eventually learned how he'd come back to life when both he and Banner were taken captive by the Trojans. They ultimately escaped that situation with some help from one of the Hulk's alien allies, the Silver Surfer. But despite this new lease on life, things began to fall apart again when Betty fell ill from lethal gamma radiation poisoning. Banner attempted to cure her and apparently would have succeeded if not for the fact that one of his enemies secretly sabotaged her blood transfusion. Betty Ross Banner was legally declared dead, and her father kept her body preserved with the hope of one day reviving her. Blaming Banner for what happened, Ross's grudge was reignited, and he soon established a new incarnation of the Hulkbusters operating out of Area 102. But then he learned that the one truly responsible for Betty's death was Emil Blonsky, the Abomination. With that, in an attempt to honor his daughter, he once more made an uneasy peace with Banner. Seeking vengeance on Blonsky, Ross later showed Banner Betty's preserved body and triggered his transformation so that he could provoke the Hulk into savagely attacking the Abomination. While Banner refused to kill his foe, this did lead to Blonsky's arrest and imprisonment, at least until his eventual escape. Then, after a particularly devastating rampage in Las Vegas, several of Earth's heroes conspired to banish the Hulk into outer space. Having lost both his daughter and his purpose, General Ross began to question his place in an ever-changing world. This was not made better by the fact that in the aftermath of the superhero Civil War, Captain America, a living symbol of freedom and patriotism, was assassinated on the steps of the Capitol. During this uncertain time, General Ross was approached by two familiar faces, MODOK and the Leader, who offered to provide him with the tools to take charge and fix their broken nation. Now, Ross hardly trusted them, but the Leader insisted that due to his alliance with MODOK and other super-intelligent villains, referred to collectively as the Intelligentsia, he would be able to fully revive Betty. Furthermore, they declared that he knew as well as they that the Hulk's return was inevitable, and they would have to be ready. Sure enough, the Hulk came back stronger and angrier than ever and declared war on the entire planet. Naturally, it was General Thunderbolt Thunderbolt Ross, who headed the military response and led the armed forces in a battle against the Hulk and his war-bound allies. In the end, this assault failed, but Tony Stark was ultimately able to subdue the Hulk with an orbital weapon that blasted him with cosmic energy. At least that's what everyone thought happened. In truth, the intelligentsia secretly hijacked Stark's satellite and used it to siphon away as much of the Hulk's power as they could get. They took Banner captive, bringing him to what appeared to be a new Gamma base in Death Valley, but was actually an AIM facility staffed by life model decoys. Then, using Doc Samson's cathexis ray, the leader and MODOK transferred the stolen power to General Thunderbolt Ross, infusing him with a combination of gamma radiation and cosmic energy that transformed him into a Red Hulk. Finally possessing the strength he'd coveted for so long, Ross began plotting his takeover of the United States, but first embarked on a more personal mission by hunting down and killing the Abomination. The discovery of Blonsky's body kicked off a S.H.I.E.L.D. investigation led by Iron Man, Maria Hill, and She-Hulk, causing them to suspect the existence of a new Hulk. Meanwhile, to throw suspicion off himself, Ross had a life model decoy take his place, spying on the heroes by participating in the investigation. Doc Samson was also pulled into this conspiracy after being brainwashed by MODOK and developing an evil alternate personality. Soon, Iron Man and the others came face to face with the Red Hulk when he launched an attack that brought down S.H.I.E.L.D.'s newest helicarrier. The Ross LMD was damaged in the crash, but it was retrieved by Samson, who took it and met with the Red Hulk before the ruse was discovered. However, Samson had been seen by an old ally of Ross's, S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Clay Quartermain, who followed and confronted him. As the Red Hulk, Ross watched stoically while Doc Samson murdered Clay Quartermain in front of him. After that, things quickly began to escalate out of control. Using DNA harvested from the Abomination, the intelligentsia experimented on Rick Jones and transformed him into a blue-scaled creature dubbed A-Bomb. After learning that the Red Hulk was working with the intelligentsia, Rick escaped, forcing Ross to try to kill him. However, their ensuing battle happened near the new Gamma base where Banner was being held captive, inadvertently releasing a savage green Hulk. Uatu the Watcher tried to observe this battle, but was decked and knocked down by the Red Hulk. Thor also got involved, and even he was initially overpowered by the Red Hulk's raw strength. While A-Bomb and Thor continued to get up, the battle was ultimately decided by a grudge match between the Green and Red Hulks. In this fight, Ross began to realize that as he grew angrier, his red body grew hotter, which caused him to begin overheating. The Green Hulk, on the other hand, only grew stronger as his rage mounted and ultimately defeated his red opponent. Exhausted from the battle, the Hulk departed, leaving the unconscious Red Hulk behind. A-Bomb tried to catch up with him to reveal what he knew, but was stopped and recaptured by Doc Samson. The Red Hulk, meanwhile, was confronted by the Thunderbolt Ross LMD, or more accurately, by MODOK, who spoke to him through the life model decoy, and declared that he had failed. Abandoned by the intelligentsia, the Red Hulk struck out on his own and subsequently clashed with a team of Lady Liberators assembled by She-Hulk, one of whom was a warrior from a future timeline named Thundra. And from here, the plots and schemes continued to get more complicated. You see, during his time with the intelligentsia, Ross learned that they intended on recruiting Thundra to their own side in the future. And so in the wake of his battle with the Lady Liberators, the Red Hulk isolated Thundra and made her a counter-offer. The Red Hulk subsequently had another encounter with the Green Hulk, but this time he successfully drained the gamma energy from Banner, preventing him from transforming again. After that, the intelligentsia set up a situation in which the mutant adventurer Domino seemingly saw Thunderbolt Ross transform into the Red Hulk. Making contact via Samson and the Ross LMD, the villains then gave the Red Hulk a list of operatives to recruit so that he could deal with that situation. Dubbed Code Red, the resulting team included Deadpool, Elektra, the Punisher, the Crimson Dynamo, and, as expected, Thundra. That led to a battle with Domino's teammates in X-Force, during which Code Red was aided by an enigmatic newcomer, a Red She-Hulk. Unbeknownst to Ross, this Hulk was actually his daughter Betty, who'd been revived and transformed by MODOK and the Leader. Complicating matters further, she didn't know who he really was either, and it turns out the whole situation had been set up so that Code Red and the Red She-Hulk could betray and subdue the Red Hulk. However, Ross was able to escape when Thundra revealed her true allegiance and attacked Samson. The Red Hulk subsequently reached an uneasy stalemate with X-Force that kept his secret safe and smoothed things over with the other members of Code Red to reduce the number of enemies he'd have to deal with. Still, with the situation having grown increasingly complicated and the intelligentsia having turned against him, Ross decided to initiate a backup plan by seeking an alliance with the only person who could outthink them, Bruce Banner. And the first part of Banner's plan was to force the intelligentsia's hand by killing Thunderbolt Ross. Banner hijacked control of MODOK's Ross LMD and staged a public battle near the Washington Monument in which the fake Ross donned a rebuilt version of the Redeemer armor and challenged the Red Hulk, only to be struck down and killed. This put MODOK and the Leader on the back foot, preventing them from continuing to abuse Ross's image and forcing them to scramble to cover up the fact that he was an LMD or else risk having their own schemes exposed. As things went on, tenuous alliances were tested and more battles were fought, including one in which the intelligentsia used the cathexis ray to transform multiple other heroes into hulking gamma mutates. They were eventually returned to normal when Banner seized control of the cathexis ray and used it to channel their gamma energy into himself, destroying the machine but once again becoming the Incredible Hulk. It was also during this battle that MODOK was taken off the board when the Hulk's ally, Amadeus Cho, reverted him back to his original human form, George Tarleton. Things started coming to a head for the Red Hulk when he once more clashed with the Red She-Hulk. During this encounter, the Red She-Hulk drained him of enough energy to revert him to human form and finally learned who he was. Not only that, but when she refused to kill him, declaring that he was her father, he learned the truth about her as well. Now, I will take a moment to acknowledge that this moment is where readers first learned the identity of the Red Hulk, a mystery that had been ongoing in the books for 2 full years at that point. The presence of the Ross LMD was not only meant to misdirect the other characters, but the reader as well. Mind you, there were plenty of hints, like when the Red Hulk would refer to someone as a milksop, which is a classic Thunderbolt Ross line dating all the way back to his initial appearance in the very first issue of Incredible Hulk. But back to the story, Ross sought vengeance on the Leader for everything he'd done and drained the gamma energy from his body, reverting him to human form and robbing him of his superintelligence. In the midst of all of these battles, the intelligentsia attempted to use another life model decoy, one based on Ross's dead ally, Glenn Talbot, to declare a state of emergency from the Oval Office. However, this LMD was destroyed by the Red Hulk, who attempted to seize control of the White House on live TV. Of course, his speech was interrupted by the Green Hulk, who Ross was shocked to see back in action. The Red Hulk gave it his all in the ensuing battle, his body burning as his rage mounted. But in the end, there was one inescapable truth that he was unable to overcome. That the Green Hulk, the real Hulk, is the strongest one there is. In the end, the Red Hulk was arrested and imprisoned while Banner agreed to keep his identity secret and let the supposedly dead General Thunderbolt Ross be remembered as a war hero and not a traitor to the United States. With that defeat, Ross was faced with the realization that he couldn't go back to his old life, and was effectively trapped as the thing he'd tried so hard to rid the world of. He was imprisoned beneath a refurbished Gamma base which Banner was put in control of. But before long, Banner and a revived Captain America came to offer Ross a chance at redemption. After getting him to change back to human form, Banner claimed that he removed the Red Hulk's ability to absorb bioenergy from others because that power was slowly killing him. The truth, which Ross later found out, was that Banner lied to try and convince him not to use this power anymore, for if he used it too much, he would permanently lose the ability to shift between human and Hulk. This all happened while Banner was recruiting Ross to combat an intelligentsia contingency plan called Scorched Earth, which would unleash every scheme they'd ever shelved because it was too dangerous or devastating. In the end, they thwarted this destruction by tracking down and disabling a supercomputer made using multiple cloned MODOK brains. However, it ultimately turned out that the whole Scorched Earth plan was simply a smokescreen to keep Banner and Ross busy, while a new MODOK was cloned to replace the original. After that, the Red Hulk was attacked by a former protege, General Reginald 14, who donned new Redeemer armor. By this point, Steve Rogers had crafted a cover story that the Red Hulk wasn't truly responsible for the attack on the White House, but 14 still believed that the Red Hulk had killed Thunderbolt Ross and sought revenge. The two had a number of encounters before 14 eventually discovered the truth, but that's a whole other set of stories. In the meantime, the Red Hulk aided the Avengers in a battle against the Hood when he started collecting Infinity Gems. He briefly became the king of an alien planet and led its people to war. He fought with a possessed Ben Grimm during the events of Fear itself, clashed with an alien robot called Omegex that started hunting him after he punched the Watcher, and joined forces with Venom, X-23, and a Ghost Rider to combat the literal forces of hell. You know, there's something about a Hulk teaming up with a Wolverine, a Ghost Rider, and a Web Slinger that feels strangely familiar, but I can't put my finger on why. Anyway, at the height of that conflict, the Red Hulk helped save the day by simultaneously merging with both the Venom symbiote and the Spirit of Vengeance. And, there's probably more we could talk about, but we're about out of time for this week, and I don't think we're going to top a Ghost Riding Venom Hulk. So for now, let me say thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it on your favorite social media. As always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me. As always, let me give a special shout out to all of my Patreon and Ko-fi supporters, Twitch subscribers, and YouTube members who help make the channel possible. By signing up for any ongoing amount on any of these platforms, you'll get your name in these special thanks, but Patreon is the one that helps determine what topics get covered on the channel via monthly polls. That being said, if there's anything in particular that you want me to talk about, be sure to let me know in the comments. But that is indeed all I have for you this week, and so until next time, true believers, Excelsior!